Nightreign's meta got shaken up not too long ago by the addition of the Collector's Signboard, where players can redeem Sovereign Sigils earned by killing everdark nightlords for unique relics. One of these relics, a Grand Luminous Scene, provides a very interesting trio of effects. Attack power permanently increased for each Evergaol prisoner defeated, Stonesword Key in possession at the start of expedition, and treasure marked on map. This relic, known by many as the Evergaol Relic, is super popular. But is it actually good? Hi everyone, my name's Diabetor, and today we're going to talk about whether or not Nightreign's Evergaol Relic is as good as people make it out to be, and whether or not you should use it. If you find this video helpful, then please leave a like, share the video, and consider subscribing. It really helps me out. Special thank you to the Story of Us in a Bus and Minicake for supporting me as members. If you want to see your name immortalized in the Hall of Insulin and get access to some exclusive perks, then consider also supporting my channel as a member. The Evergaol Relic's primary effect is to increase your attack power by 5% for the rest of the expedition for every Evergaol boss you kill. There are a maximum of 7 Evergaols on the map for a potential total of approximately 40% more attack power. It's actually a little over that, but for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to call it 40%. 40% is a huge damage increase, and that applies to all damage you do, be it with melee weapons, bows, spells, consumables, etc., making this a very lucrative effect if you can capitalize on it. The secondary and tertiary effects, Stonesword Key in possession and treasure marked on map, both serve to support your ability to actually find keys to open Evergaols and get the buff rolling. Starting with the key is self-explanatory, and treasure chests have a decent chance of dropping them, along with other uncommon and rare weapons and consumables, so if you seek them out and get lucky, then you can get loaded up pretty early into your run. There are several major caveats to consider when using this relic. Number 1. Evergaols require Stonesword Keys to open. Stonesword Keys can only be found in certain places, including forts, great churches, carriage minor camps, and treasure chests, or bought from the township merchant. There are almost no guaranteed Stonesword Key drops, save for the big chest in the carriage camp, which is only guaranteed to drop a key if it's the drop zone at the very start of the expedition, though there are usually plenty of opportunities to find them. Fortunately, the relic has a starting Stonesword Key built in, so you always have access to at least one, but nevertheless, you generally aren't going to get access to 7 keys in a run without getting lucky or coordinating with your team so that everyone starts with a key. Number 2, Evergaol bosses are random. They range from something as trivially easy as the Gravewarden Duelist, to Crucible Knights, Banished Knight Trio, Godskin Nobles or Apostles, Godskin Nobles and Apostles, all the way up to Ancient Dragons and Deathrite Birds, and more. This variance can be beneficial or extremely detrimental depending on where you're at in the run when you open the jail, what level you are, your team composition, the weapons and damage types you have on hand, and your build. For example, the Gravewarden Duelist is basically a free kill at any point in the run regardless of your character, level, or gear, whereas it would be a huge pain in the ass to kill a Deathrite Bird, especially if you're at level 3, especially without access to holy damage, and especially if you're something like an Iron Eye Poison build or an Executor Bleed build, because the bird is immune to both of those effects. The point being that even if you do get a Stonesword Key and open the jail, there's a chance you just won't be able to kill the boss that comes out of it, and you might end up wasting a lot of time, or wasting the key entirely. Remember, you need to kill the boss to get your 5%. Number 3. Evergaols are scattered throughout the map. The 7 Evergaols are always located in the same places, which is very nice, but traveling to and from them is time-consuming. Depending on the jail and the map layout, you might be able to work them into your route pretty easily, or you might have to go out of your way for them. And if you end up losing time due to dying, or your team being dumbasses, or some other bullshit, you might just get locked out of them entirely due to the rain closing in before you can get to them. On average, the Noontide Circle will have 2 to 3 jails inbounds, so you generally can usually get 1 or 2 of them done, but it's fairly common to see people open jails and then get pushed away from them by the rain, or complete a jail and then get locked out of another one before they can reach it. Number 4, there aren't even always 7 jails. Shifting Earth events use different map layouts which always have fewer jails than the default map. The Crater has 4, has 6, Rotten Woods has 6, and the Mountaintop has 4. So even if you can get the keys and consistently get good boss luck and travel across the map quickly enough to hit them all, if you're on a Shifting Earth map, then you still literally just can't get the buff to the same level as you could on the default map. The shifting earth maps also don't synergize with this effect very well, because on day 2, you generally want to hit the shifting earth location as soon as possible, meaning you typically only have the first day to work on Evergaols. Number 5. Evergaols aren't everything. The buff from the relic is pretty strong, if you hit several jails, and more importantly, if you have it. If your teammates don't have the relic effect, then they're rightfully going to be a lot less enthusiastic about hitting jails than you. And even in solo, you still need to weigh the opportunity cost of getting your 5% versus getting significantly more runes and rare or legendary weapons, weapon passives, and passive buffs from killing point of interest and field bosses. Is 5% more damage from an Evergaol worth it when you might instead spend that time getting a 20% better weapon? If you're the only person on the team with the relic, then is 5% more damage solely for you more valuable than letting your team gear up with potential rares and legendaries? With its effect and caveats in mind, what's the most effective way to use the Evergaol relic? Many players see videos saying Nightreign's Evergaol meta is broken or some shit, and then single-mindedly try to hit every jail in every match, damned be routing and damned be what their teammates need. This is the worst possible way to use this relic. You're fucking over your team and being inefficient with your time. If you're using the Evergaol relic, then my advice is this: aim for 3 to 4 jails per run, or maybe 2 to 3 if it's a shifting earth event, and plan out your fucking route. 3 to 4 jails is easily doable and will give you a 15 to 20% damage bonus, which is comparable or superior to other relic effects that you're passing up for the chance to use this one. It's generally quite feasible to get 2 jails on day 1, and then hit stuff like the castle, affinity POIs for weapons the Nightlord is weak to, and mage rises and flask churches if you need them. Preferably, you'll choose 2 jails that are either close to each other or ones with useful stuff in between them. You want to waste as little time doing nothing as possible, so try to hit POIs and field bosses as you're traveling from one jail to another. The northern mineshafts are pretty good for traveling between the northernmost jails. While you don't necessarily want to try and force yourself to hit all 4 of them, it's always a good idea to hit a jail, then the tunnel, and then another jail. If you drop in near the jails that are out of the way, like the one at the north end of the ravine or the northwest plateau, then it might be a good idea to use your first Stonesword Key on that, because there's a high chance the first circle will close in away from those, and a good chance you won't have time to come back on day 2. Always know when to fold them. If you open a jail and get a shitty boss like the Banished Knight Trio or a Deathbird, and you're not prepared, or you just don't feel like dealing with that shit, then don't be afraid to cut your losses and either abandon that jail or come back to it on day 2. The value you get for time spent hitting POIs and other jails is much more valuable than the time you waste by dying over and over to a boss which you're not ready for in exchange for a 5% damage buff. While we're talking about this relic, I also want to take the opportunity to talk about alternatives to it and why you should consider them. While the Evergaol Relic provides a simple way to potentially significantly increase your damage, there is an opportunity cost you pay when choosing it over something else that might potentially be better. For example, unique character relics are highly valuable. Some characters, like Raider and his damage taken while using character skill increases attack power and max stamina effect, feel incomplete without them. Iron Eye's +1 character skill use effect massively increases his survivability and damage output, especially when combined with his character skill inflicts heavy poison damage on poisoned enemies relic in Deep of Night. The obvious response to this is to say, well, just use those and the Evergaol relic, but considering how terrible the random relic drops are, unless you're a challenge runner, that's really just not always an option. The Evergaol Relic is definitely not always the best choice, so don't be tricked by slop tubers into thinking that it's the best shit in the game, because it's not. Outside of character-specific relic effects, there are general relic effects which may provide similar buff effects, perhaps with the trade-offs of not having to go for Evergaols, but also not always being active. For example, taking attacks improves attack power, provides a 15% damage buff for 10 seconds after getting hit. On Raider, this is basically a free plus 15% damage because he can tank attacks with Retaliate, but even on other characters like Wilder and Guardian, or even the squishy ones like Recluse and Revenant, you can look for things like the Endure Ash of War, the successive attacks negate damage weapon passive, uplifting aromatics, and other hyper armor skills to safely make use of it without getting one-shotted by everything. There's also effects like physical or elemental attack up, switching weapons boosts attack power, physical attack up after using grease items. If you're using a specific type of weapon, then the improved X attack power and attack power up with 3+ X equipped ones are really good. Iron Eye in particular makes great use of the improved initial standard attack effect by just dual-wielding bows. You can also totally just get buffs during expeditions like Golden Vow, Sacred Order, Rallying Standard, etc. by just looking out for them. Most of them are pretty common. Again, your response to that might be, well, I have to go out of my way to look for those. And like, yeah, as opposed to going out of your way to find keys, go to jails, and kill the bosses there, right? Finally, and I've saved the best for last, the ultimate alternative to the Evergaol Relic is to find the Evergaol effect on another relic. Yeah, obviously there's no way to guarantee you'll get a perfect relic, unless you're a challenge runner, but the relic sorting system makes it easy to see which relics you do have with the Evergaol effect and decide how you can work those into your build. I like this alternative the best because if you can get the Evergaol effect on a relic with another useful effect for your character or build, then you don't feel like you've wasted a relic slot if you can't hit however many jails you want. The Evergaol Relic is like a bet. You can trade a relic slot for this effect and a free key at the start of the run, and the gamble is whether or not you'll be able to do enough jails and other POIs to become more powerful than if you had used a different relic. The Evergaol Relic is 3 effects dedicated to doing Evergails, right? So if you don't get your money's worth from it, you feel like it's a waste, and that's a part of why so many dumbasses bum rush jails without considering anything else, because they paid that opportunity cost and they feel like they have to go and get all the jails. But if you get the Evergaol effect on a relic with effects that are good for your character, then Evergails are like a nice side bonus you get in addition to your build for your character, and the only downside is that you don't start with a key, which is probably for the best anyway because too many dumbasses immediately try to hit Evergails as soon as the match starts and end up wasting 15 minutes fighting fucking deathbirds and shit. In conclusion, while the Evergaol Relic is pretty good, it's definitely not always the best thing, and there are plenty of reasons not to use it. If you don't want to deal with the stress of having to hit X amount of Evergails in each run, then don't use it, or use the effect on a different relic. You'll be fine. If you found this video helpful, then please leave a like, share the video, or consider subscribing or joining my channel as a member. It really helps me out. My name is Diabetor, and I will catch you later.